Hi everyone, this is Koinzell here. So today I have for you the Yunjin Math Guide 3, which will be her buffing Noelle. So we're gonna use Red Hornstone Treasure here since this is her best weapon right now. Unfortunately I don't have the time to permutate more weapons, but if you have seen the Twitch stream where I shared Yoimiya using Rust with Yunjin buff, you'll see that there's not much of a difference really in terms of the percentage buff that Yunjin provides. There may be a slight variance of 1 to 2%, but that's about it. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, even though she's using Red Hornstone Treasure, the Yunjin buff, the buff figures would more or less still apply for other weapons, as long as your weapon is not too bad in terms of the crit damage or bonuses that it provide, that the Yunjin's buff can make use of as well. Okay. So let me just quickly go through what we will run through in this video. So basically, before we start, I'll talk about some of the assumptions, important points to note. Noelle Stats, Bennett versus Yunjin, best and worst case for Yunjin's buff, Yunjin full defense buffer versus sub-DPS build, 4-piece Petra for Yunjin or Gorou, because I've seen a couple of comments asking me that. I was quite surprised about that, but I'll address it. Noelle versus Itto, Noelle's AoE, which in turn we will cover Noelle's AoE versus Itto's AoE as well, and we'll do a conclusion, we'll do triple geocom for Noelle, and I'll do a TLDR on the points that I've just mentioned, and of course what we'll do for next video. So let's dive right in. Before we start, the first portion here is exactly the same as when I first did the Noelle Math Guide 1. That was before the Itto release. Okay, so all of these still holds. The key difference I want to call out here is this. Well, actually in my Math Guide 1 I was already using this figure, but I wanted to make it clearer. Okay, so the number of normal attacks we will have in 11 seconds of Noelle's burst, and the reason why you use 11 seconds is because of this. We want to match the buff duration. So it ranges from 2x M4 plus M1 to 2x M4 plus N2. That's the number of attack that you can do. So it also depends on how much you dodge to reposition or change enemies that dash out of range, etc, etc. Okay. So it's ranging between, the difference is about 1 more attack. As usual, we will take the lower end. So the math in this video will simply assume 2x M4 plus M1. For C6 Yunjin buff, it is 1 additional NA, so 2x M4 plus N2. I tested in-game with C2 Jin and I was able to achieve a additional attack. So, I mean, even if it's a 2x M4 plus N2 scenario, you also get it up to N3 with C2 Jin's attack speed buff. So we are going to assume that it's the same effect here. Now bear in mind that you can also use N3 instead of M4 when there are multiple enemies, but for simplicity, I'll just use M4 here. Okay, 1 attack string. Rotation is assuming 130 to 140% ER is sufficient in most scenarios. I'll share what is my ER later. In fact, I'll share it next here. So these are the Noelle stats. This is based on my actual Noelle as well. So we have 1090 attack, 64.9 CR / 226.8 CD, 2319 defense with R1, 2543 with R5, and 140.1 ER. Okay, so these are my Noelle stats. Let me just go up and see if there's anything specifically that I want to call out. Yeah, so pretty standard, right? Defense, Sense, Goblet is Geo Goblet. We are using a CR headpiece since our weapon gives so much crit damage. So, yep, that's about it. And obviously we are using 4-piece hearts with full weighting assumed. Talking about the weighting, if you guys have used 4-piece hearts with Sapiens Fight, you should know, right? The waiting time is really as what I have shared pre-release. It's double the waiting time. And you can't even AFK because you need to switch in between. Oh well. Alright, now let's talk about Bennett versus Yunjin for Noelle. Now you might think that why am I still comparing against Bennett again? Isn't it like, aren't you guys sick of it? When we've been comparing so much for Yoimiya buff by Yunjin, for Ganyu buff by Yunjin, Ganyu buff by Shenhe, etc. But there's a reason why, and I'll show you guys now. Okay, the figures, okay, there's a lot of figures here. Let me just try to compress it. So here we have the F2P Bennett, fully built Bennett, Yunjin Full Defense, Yunjin Sub-DPS, and then we have for C6 Gorou, the same as well, with C6 Gorou. Okay? Yeah, with C6 Gorou, these are the figures. And we have the percentages here. Now you start to see something interesting, don't you? There are pink cells and red figures. And I'll explain what are those now. So, effectively, for Noelle, right, we have some really interesting results. The figures highlighted in red implies the corresponding Yunjin buff is weaker than fully built Bennett's for Noelle. So if it's in red like this Yunjin buff is worse off than a fully built Bennett. If it's highlighted in pink here, it means that it's even weaker than an F2P Bennett. So let's talk about that now. I obviously will not cover every single red finger or pink cell, but essentially some key points to call out for Yunjin buffing Noelle will be C2 plus Yunjin will always perform better than F2P Bennett. If it's not C2 plus, if it's C0, C1, you have scenarios where you can't even perform better than a F2P Bennett. Yep. So other than Yunjin Sub-DPS build for Noelle with R1 Stone Treasure, this a C2 Yunjin Sub-DPS build for Noelle with R1 Stone Treasure can't even perform better than F2P Bennett. That's what I'm trying to say here. Okay. Now next, C3 plus Yunjin Full Defense build will always perform better or on par with a fully built Bennett, while Sub-DPS build requires C6 to achieve this. And obviously C6 Yunjin will always perform better than Bennett, be it F2P or fully built, and it's about 10 to 12% better. So this is a very interesting result, right? Because previously for Yoimiya, we have a very good result where we are able to get 2x to 2.5 to 3x the amount of Bennett's buff on Yoimiya. But on Noelle, there are cases where Bennett is better, and even the highest constellation of Yunjin is only 10 to 12% better. So let's talk about why that's the case. Okay? And I'll talk about the best and worst case for Yunjin's buff. I think you should know that this obviously looks like it's the worst case already, right? So if you recall, for Yoimiya, Yunjin buffs 2x more than F2P Bennett and 2.5 to 3 times more. Oh, sorry, it's the other way around. My bad, it's the other way around. 2.5 to 3 times more for F2P, more than F2P Bennett. And 2x more than fully built Bennett. Wait, is that the case? No. It is 2.5 to 3.5x more than fully built Bennett. For a F2P Bennett is even more than that. Sorry. Yeah. But for Noelle, there are scenarios where Bennett is better than Yunjin, and C6 Yunjin only has a 10 to 12% advantage over Bennett. Why is this the case? These are the reasons, okay? So first off, Yunjin's buff works based on damage instances. The more damage instances, the more she contributes. Yoimiya can deal 21 to 25 hits in the same duration that Noelle does 9 to 10. The difference is more than half. Almost half. Or rather, slightly more than half for a single target scenario. So this effectively halves Yunjin's contribution to Noelle compared to Yoimiya. Okay, half the number of hits, slightly more than half. It's slightly less than half. Noelle's normal attack are all single hits with higher percentage multipliers, which benefit Bennett more than Yunjin. Okay, she literally only has 4 hits from 4 attacks, and all of them have high percentage multipliers as opposed to most normal attacks. So Yoimiya's elemental skill multiplier is not the reason, let me just put that in caps, is not the reason for Yunjin's significantly higher performance than Bennett. Okay, it's not, because your Bennett buff is also affected by the elemental skill multiplier. It's also affected by it. So there's no, it's not the reason for Yunjin performing that well. It's not. It is because of what I have shared here, A and B here. Okay. And if for some reason Yoimiya's elemental skill multiplier doesn't work on Yunjin's buff, that would be really weird given how damage formula works in this game. But either way, whether it works or not, it is still buffing Yoimiya by a lot because Yoimiya's kit works great for Yunjin. So to conclude, right, the best scenario for Yunjin's buff to perform astoundingly good percentage-wise are low skill multipliers like Yoimiya's M1, M4, high number of hits, fast attacks like Yoimiya, Fisher, Zhongli, Xiangling, etc., or multi-hit attacks like Eula's N3 and M5, Yoimiya's M1 and M4. So do you now see why Yoimiya is so good for her? Yoimiya has fast attacks, Yoimiya has low skill multipliers, Yoimiya has multi-hit attacks. So that's the reason why Yunjin's buff has such a high damage percentage buff for Yoimiya. Okay? I mean, obviously, the amount of damage instances of Yunjin's buff determine the actual total amount that Yunjin contributes. Okay. So worst case is obviously the reverse, which is basically like Noelle's normal attacks, high multipliers, low number of hits, the reverse. Okay. So this is also the reason why I wanted to do Noelle math with Yunjin buff right after Yoimiya, so that I can show you guys both ends of the spectrum. So Yoimiya is the one where she's the best case for Yunjin to buff. Noelle is the worst case for Yunjin, but this doesn't mean that this doesn't mean that Yunjin is bad for Noelle. Okay. Please understand that this does not mean that Yunjin is bad for Noelle. What this means is just in terms of relative comparison. When you compare Yunjin to say another Yunjin buffing different type of normal attack characters, it's just a relative comparison. It doesn't mean that she's bad. It doesn't mean that she's bad. Sorry, the black spot is irking me a lot. Okay, it doesn't mean that she's bad. It just means that depending on the character's kit, Yunjin's percentage buff may have a significant difference. But in a Noelle comp, obviously you still want to use Yunjin, right? Who else will buff her? Yeah, you can use Bennett, but in the first place, you can use Bennett together with Yunjin. So let's talk about Yunjin full defense versus sub-DPS build. So basically, the sub-DPS buff is quite a fair bit, and it only performs better than fully built Bennett at C6 Yunjin by 2 to 5%, while worse off in all other constellations. So that's pretty bad, right? But will Gorou's buff make it better for the sub-DPS build in terms of Yunjin's damage? And then when we put the total damage when we add the damage for Yunjin and Noelle together, what will it look like? So using C6 Noelle from the figures above, since most early players will have her at C6 by now, she's on the beginner banner. There was a period where she kept appearing on the featured banners as well. So we're gonna do C6 R1 level 9 12 talents here. This is Yunjin sub DPS damage. This is her sub. Oh wait, sorry. I need to expand this because previously we hit some of the figures. So these are the damage figures. We have R1 with C2 plus Gorou, and then with C6 plus Gorou, and R5 of course, and full defense versus sub DPS. So all the figures, and then they increase accordingly to the constellations. And when we include Yunjin's E, which is a main DPS for a sub DPS, main damage for a sub DPS build, you'll see that the sub DPS build does have higher damage, of course, from a full defense buffer. Now let's see if it's enough to make up for the loss. So total damage when I add both Yunjin's E as well as Noelle's damage together, these are the figures. You'll start to notice that the sub DPS is slightly better than full defense buffer. Okay, even with Noelle's damage included after the buff effect. But here's the thing. It's really an interesting result where it's again different from Yoimiya, being 1 to 2% better, and this result is largely thanks to the combination of two factors. Okay? A. Gorou's buff works on Yunjin's elemental skill, since she's on field for it, but not for the buff from her burst, since it's off field and assumed dynamic. Okay, so in other words, Gorou's buff helps the sub-DPS, but it doesn't help the full defense buffer. Think of it that way. Noelle's gain from Yunjin is on the lowest end due to how she works. Already covered this. So due to these two factors combined together, we now have a situation where sub-DPS is actually performing better than full defense buffer. But honestly, given that it's only 1 to 2% better, I'll still recommend full defense build so that you maintain the flexibility for her. I.e., if when you don't use Gorou, at least you don't suffer too much in comparison. Okay, if you remember, full defense buffer build is better by about 9 to 10% than the sub-DPS build on Yoimiya. So personally, I'll still recommend full defense build. Now let's go on to the next point, 4-piece Petra for Yunjin or Gorou. I've seen quite a few comments asking me on this, so that's why I want to address it here. 4-piece Petra's design has too many conditions in which it's bad. It's unreliable in terms of getting the right elemental shard that you want, especially against mobs with elemental shields or slimes. Or elemental slimes. It pretty much means it falls under the same reason why Lava Walker is not good. Yeah, same reason. If you know why Lava Walker is not good, it's the exact same reason. Because against such enemies, you just can't get your benefit anymore. And it's very bad if your, how should I put it, if your artifact's design is conditional, based on enemy and not based on you. Because if it's a condition based on your character, you can control it, but it's a condition dependent on enemies. That's what makes it unreliable. Okay? Now B, your character equipping 4-piece Petra has to be on field to get the shard for the effect to trigger. Okay, this is bad. This means that you can't switch out of your Gorou or your Yunjin if you're using them. Using 4-piece Petra on them. It means unnecessary delay in your rotation, having to wait for the shard to generate and then you pick it up before you switch out. And if you try to game it by switching out earlier, using another character, and then switching back up to pick up the shard, you are screwed if a mob pushes you towards the shard while you're not on the character equipping 4-piece Petra. And you know the bit-sized mobs can push you, yeah? Now, let's talk about Gorou's crystallized shard pulling effect. It only triggers every 1.5 seconds, so it doesn't pull it once it's generated. So that's why I wouldn't count on you solving this issue. It's not like the moment there's a shard then you will pull it. It triggers every 1.5 seconds. So, what this means is that you either waste time trying to wait for the shard to generate and then pick it up, or you wait for the shard to generate and then you wait another 1.5 seconds for Gorou to help you pull it. Not good. Now, since Gorou's pulling effect can't reliably solve the pickup issues, you also run into the problems created by pickup. 1. If shard drops and you are blocked by a big mob, you have to waste time going around. If multiple element shards drop, which is the scenario against elemental shields or slimes, even if you are 3S Joe with one element on the same spot, you may not even get the right shard. Because I have encountered such scenarios before where the shards are literally right next to each other. When you go towards them, you get both shards. And you might not even get the shard that you want in terms of 4-piece Petra. I mean, most of the time it doesn't matter, right? But if you're using 4-piece Petra, it starts to matter. Next point, shards created by Joviceps will not trigger 4-piece Petra effect. So you're pretty much screwed against Joviceps and the entire family. 4-piece effect wise. So, because of all the conditions, I would say that 4-piece Petra is bad. It's a bad idea. It's a bad design. So I personally would recommend 4-piece Haas Yunjin or 4-piece Nobliss Gorou over 4-piece Petra. But if you already have upgraded Petra pieces with good stats previously, you can use it as a placeholder, but just bear in mind it's just not as reliable or flexible per se, and it's definitely not a good option as well. It's okay as a temporary placeholder until you get something good. That's about it. Alright, now let's talk about Noelle versus Itto. So first off, my Itto stats are based on my actual Itto. So 1329 attack, 63.9 CR, 274.2 CD, 2568 defense, R1, 2836 defense, R5, 115% ER. The artifact stats are more or less equivalent to Noelle's. Why? Because the difference in crit damage can be attributed to Itto's CR Ascension stats. And differences in defense and attack are due to base attack and defense values. And as for ER, we can get higher while maintaining CR/CD. Oh wait, sorry, the way I put it is not very correct. How should I put this? It's equivalent in the sense of considering the fact that Itto CR Ascension stats does give you more CR/CD. So you cannot expect that Noelle can achieve the same CR/CD. Because Itto already has more CR from his Ascension. You cannot expect that I can, in terms of the artifacts being well rolled, right? I cannot possibly hit the same type of CR/CD with Noelle because Itto has CR on Ascension while Noelle only has defense. Okay? So bear that in mind. So as for ER, we can get higher while maintaining crit damage, there's a typo here, CR/CD, and sacrificing some attack/defense, which I have shown on my Itto release stream. So not much difference really, and this comparison is fair in my opinion, because I can't get better CR/CD stats than on Noelle than what I already have, and it's already pretty good. My Noelle stats are good, man. What do we have? We have 60 plus CR, right? We have 64.9 CR and 226.8 CD. I can't get higher than this because if you think about it, Itto has that additional almost 20% CR from his stats, from his Ascension. Noelle doesn't. That more or less makes up the difference here, right? Between her CR/CD and Itto's CR/CD. Okay? I hope that much is clear. And I can't give her the same artifacts that Itto is using because her CR will be too low then. Right? Because Itto has CR Ascension stat. I keep saying this. There's no way for me to exactly mirror the same stats. What I can do is to make them as close as possible after taking away that 20% CR. Okay? So this is fair, in my opinion. So Itto's figures are here. C0, C1, then you have C6, C6, different talent levels, etc. Now you have the Yunjin figures here. And then we have the comparison figures here. So these are the ones that people should be interested in. You have the different percentages. These percentages are basically how high Itto does, how much more Itto does compared to Noelle. Okay, how much more Itto does compared to Noelle. This is how you read it. So typically, before we start talking about the comparison, right? Typically you can't get a C6 4-star by the time you get a C0 5-star, assuming you don't have both and are new. So I will include comparison against C1 as well. So up to you to decide whether you want to compare C0 or C1. I'll just provide both of them. Okay. So as Yunjin's constellations increase, obviously Noelle's damage gets better, and Itto's advantage grows from 69 to 70%, 77% depending on your weapon and your Noelle build to, sorry, not Noelle build, your Yunjin's build to 44 to 50%. So worst case scenario with a C6 Yunjin, should I call it worst case scenario? Not really, right? But with a C6 Yunjin, basically Itto still can do 44 to 50% more than Noelle in 11 seconds of burst. Against the C1 Itto, as Yunjin's constellations increase, obviously Noelle's damage gets better and Itto's advantage goes from 88 to 95% to 59 to 66%. Okay. So as expected, Noelle still won't be able to match Itto even with Yunjin buffing her and not Itto, because Yunjin can buff Noelle, but she doesn't buff Itto because Itto is charge attack. I just like I shared in the math guide too, right? I already doubted that Noelle can match Itto. So let's talk about Noelle's AoE versus Itto's AoE, right? Because you may want to push the narrative that Noelle has a large AoE during her burst, and that's true. But Itto also has AoE. His hit range is actually bigger than he loots. If you have seen my stream, you have seen me doing different type of content, you'll notice that he's actually able to hit enemies at the back as well. It's crazy. Sometimes I see it and I'm like, oh, how did he manage to hit the enemies at the back? But, well, anyway, his hit range is just bigger than he loots. Okay? It's also big enough to hit all the melee mobs that come to attack him. So it's good. But what this means is that in scenarios with melee mobs, there is no AoE advantage that Noelle possesses over Itto. Let's make that clear. Yes, Noelle has a huge AoE, but if you're looking at just melee mobs, Itto will hit them all as well. There's no difference. But for range mobs, example those pesky Hilichur archers and bomb throwing treasure hoarders, yes, Noelle will have an advantage. But it's not an advantage that will last throughout their burst, because these range mobs have lower HP and they die fast. Right? They die fast. You're not gonna have a range mod that can somehow last throughout your 11 seconds of burst. Only in that kind of scenario then we can say that Noelle's damage is higher than Itto. But you're not gonna find such range mobs, man. So what this means is that it's not accurate to say Noelle does better than Itto unless the range mod lasts throughout burst. Okay? Let's make that clear. So in Spiral Beasts, where they don't die that fast, the range mobs, because their level are higher so their defense is higher, they are so wide apart that Noelle also can't hit them without having to move towards them. I don't know if you guys have used Noelle in Spiral Beasts, you know what I mean. Some of the range mobs are so wide apart that you can't hit them. Hell, even Ventis Burst can't pull some of them. Okay? And before you say Itto will need to dodge more compared to Noelle to reach that further range mob, Itto's Kesa has a dash animation that you can use. Okay? He actually does a dash while you're charging, while you're holding before he triggers and starts his Kesagiri slash. So I hope that's clear. In terms of AoE, Noelle has an AoE advantage, but it's not that big because Itto has AoE as well. And her AoE only presents an advantage against range mobs, which are not going to last throughout your 11 seconds of burst. And in Spiral Abyss, it's worse off. You can't even hit more of them, even with Noelle's burst. So, just before I conclude, right, just be clear that I am not taking either character's side. I'm just looking at things objectively, because I love Noelle's huge AoE too. There's something very, very satisfying about using her large attacks to hit enemies. So all in all, I would say Itto still performs significantly better than Noelle. Other than specific situations where there are range mods that are somehow in Noelle's range but not Itto's range, and they last throughout the burst duration. And that's very, very unlikely. And if you encounter such a situation, the odds are your Noelle is not built correctly. Okay, I'm just gonna come out and say this. Your Noelle is not built correctly if you have a situation where range mobs don't die and they last throughout your burst duration. That's crazy. So if that's the case, then the problem is that your Noelle is not built correctly. The problem is not with Itto or Noelle. Okay? Now, despite this conclusion, with Gorou and Yunjin's addition to the game, they still really provide a very nice boost to Noelle. And that's fantastic for Noelle, it's very nice. I am looking forward to trying out Noelle with Gorou and Yunjin too. Otherwise, why would I want to do this math guide, right? Well, the other reason was also because I wanted to show you guys the lower end of the spectrum for Yunjin's buff too. Okay, we are reaching the final topic before TLDR. Triple Joe comp for Noelle. So I'm just gonna say this, okay? Gorou is a must for Noelle. If you main Noelle and you don't have Gorou, please get Gorou, otherwise you shouldn't call yourself a Noelle main. You want to use a character as a main, you better make sure that you optimize where possible. Especially on such a character, Gorou, that gives such a huge buff to Noelle. But unless you try and you didn't get it because of your luck, because of RNG, then I'm sorry, and I hope you get him before the Itto banner is over. Okay? So, for a triple Joe comp, the comp options for Noelle are literally the same as Itto, but you have the added option of using Yunjin as the third Joe. And you should, because she's the best option for the third slot for increasing Noelle's damage. Best option, hands down, for Noelle's damage. So flat slot is again same as per Itto's comp. And if you don't have C2 plus Gorou, or you just want more damage upfront rather than full 12 seconds duration, you can use Bennet. Yep, our dear Bennet. So it's all in buffs for Noelle. Every single character on that team will buff Noelle. You have Bennett, you have Gorou, you have Yunjin. Everyone lives for Noelle basically. This is all for one. I don't know whether you guys know what reference I'm talking about, but yeah. Oops. Okay, so Bennett, I'm gonna go into the TLDR now. Wow, it's been 30 minutes and I've been speaking as fast as I can. So we have Bennett versus Yunjin for Noelle. Best and worst case for Yunjin's buff. full defense buffer versus Sub-DPS, 4-piece Petra, Noelle versus Itto, triple Jocom, 6 points. So Bennett versus Yunjin for Noelle, C2 plus Yunjin will always perform better than F2P Bennett, other than Sub-DPS build. C3 plus Yunjin, full defense build will perform better or on par with a fully built Bennett. So you just need C3 Yunjin to be on par or better than a fully built Bennett. Sub-DPS build, however, the Yunjin Sub-DPS build will require C6. C6 Yunjin will always perform better than Bennett, be it F2P or fully built. Okay, it's about 10 to 12% better. And all of this is because Noelle's case is the worst case for Yunjin's buff. Let's talk about the best and worst case for Yunjin's buff next. Best case for Yunjin's buff to perform astoundingly good percentage-wise are low skill multipliers like Yoimiya's M1, M4, high number of hits, i.e. fast attacks like Yoimiya, Fisher, Tony Excelling, etc., or multi-hit attacks like Eula's N3, M5, Yoimiya's M1, M4. So worst case is obviously the reverse, where you have like Noelle's normal attacks, high multipliers, low number of hits. Noelle has 4 attacks that do 1 hit each. Okay, so this is worst case in terms of comparing Yunjin's buff relatively across different normal attack based characters. But it doesn't mean that you should not use Yunjin to buff Noelle. She's still a great buffer for Noelle. It's just that Yunjin buffs other normal attack characters a lot more. That's what I can say, percentage wise. Next, we have Yunjin full defense buffer versus Sub-DPS build. Although Sub-DPS build is better in terms of overall DPS in a Noelle plus Gorou comp, it's only 1 to 2% better. Full defense buffer is still recommended to maintain flexibility for Yunjin. 4-piece Petra for Yunjin and Gorou. 4-piece Petra is bad. Please refer to a specific session for details. I don't want to go through that again. I wouldn't recommend to use it unless as a temporary placeholder only. The design is really bad. I think it's one of the worst 4-piece artifact design, honestly speaking. Itto still performs so next is Noelle versus Itto. Itto still performs significantly better than Noelle, other than specific situations where there are range mobs that are somehow in Noelle's range but not Itto's, and they last throughout the burst duration, which is very, very unlikely. And if you encounter such a situation, odds are your Noelle is not built correctly. And that's the real problem. Not Itto or Noelle. It's your building, is how the character is built. Lastly, triple dual comp for Noelle. Get Gorou and Yunjin for Noelle if you are using Noelle as a mid DPS. That's the best TLDR one-line statement that I can give. Get Gorou and Yunjin for Noelle if you want to use Noelle as a mid DPS. Flat slot is same as per Itto comp, and if you don't have C2 plus Gorou or you just want more damage upfront rather than the full 12 seconds duration, you can use Bennett. All in buffs for Noelle. All for one. Okay, it's really all for one. Bennett buffs Noelle, Yunjin buffs Noelle, Gorou buffs Noelle. And yeah, I myself am interested in that comp as well. Okay, so let's talk about the next video. So firstly, thanks all for participating in the poll regarding the next character after Noelle for Yunjin, and it looks like Eula is the most popular. And before you say that normal attacks is only half of her Eula's kit, right? C6 Yunjin gives you normal attack speed buff. That is going to help Eula's burst. Of course, not everyone will get C6 Yunjin, I know, but you can eventually get there for 4-star characters. And the attack speed boost is going to help Eula gain more stats and in turn deal more damage on her burst. So she buffs not just her normal attacks, but her burst as well. That's one thing to note. However, I have to put on a hold on Yunjin videos because we have to resume Shenhe videos. I gotta do the Ayaka freeze comp, I gotta do the constellation, weapon refinement, builds, weapon comparison, etc. In fact, I might do build comparison first, so that I myself know whether to farm for more Blizzard pieces for her. Because what I have right now is the full defense build for her, 2 Glads, 2 Shimi. If I eventually do not get the time to do Eula math, I will still definitely test out Eula with Shenhe/Yunjin or even both when they are live. So thanks for your understanding in advance. I apologize that I did a poll, but I may not have been able to do the video, the math guide. Because if you guys have been following my videos, you know on weekends it's harder for me to do math guides because it's baby duty. Okay. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope this Noelle buff by Yunjin Math Guide is helpful to you guys. Should I call this? Yeah, I should call this Yunjin Math Guide, right? I shouldn't call this Noelle Math Guide. So it's a Yunjin Math Guide for Noelle, buffing Noelle. Okay, so thanks everyone for watching. If you like the content, remember to like the video and click subscribe for more. Bye. Right, if you have more questions regarding Noelle, feel free to ask in the comments, but sometimes I may not be able to answer all comments. And I really welcome you to join, encourage you to join my Twitch to ask me on stream, because I answer almost anything on stream. I mean questions wise. So yeah, okay, bye.